Hi. In this module, we are going to talk about the ethics of data storytelling. So I'm often asked to produce a bulletproof data story. And what I say is that there's no such thing as a bulletproof. There's no such thing as absolute data-based evidence that is correct. All you can do to get close to a bulletproof data story is aspire to be as transparent as possible. There's no way that you can do a data analysis that has no assumptions built into it. There's no way that you've acquired a data set that is perfect and clean in every possible way. All you can do is say what data you have and be as transparent as possible about the choices and the assumptions that went into building your data story. So the foundation, in my opinion, of the ethics of data storytelling is transparency. And as much as you can, it's good to build these things into the actual meat of your data story, the part of your data story that everyone is going to read. This is where you need to go through what you did for your data biography, all the different characteristics of your data that you found out, where it came from, who collected it, who was missing, and always importantly, why the data was collected. Include those things in your story as part of an ethical data storyteller. And it won't be any more work for you because you already have it, because you've already built a really solid data storytelling, a data biography. The second part of transparency is to include the decisions you made in getting the results that you're talking about in your data storytelling. So if you chose to include certain variables or you chose to exclude other variables, you need to talk about why you did that. You'll recall in our video on mediators and confounders how which variables that are or are not included in the data analysis makes a really big difference to the outcomes. So I strongly encourage you to talk about the variables that you included, of course, that has to occur in your data story, but equally important, talk about the variables that you did not include or the data that you did not include and why. If you do these two things, that will put you on really solid ground in terms of the ethics of data storytelling. The second thing I highly recommend is be really careful about what words you use, particularly when it comes to the distinction between correlation and causation. We've talked in this class about how correlation does not mean just because two things are related, that does not mean that thing one is causing thing two or that thing two is causing thing one. It simply means that they're related. And there's a big temptation when telling stories with data to slightly exaggerate the relationships. And even though you may say deep down in the meat of the story that these two variables are only correlated, which means they're associated, it's easy to write a headline that makes it sound like one is causing the other. So for example, in a headline, church attendance boosts immunity. That's a headline that better have some causal data analysis to back it up, because you're saying in that headline that X is causing Y. Church attendance is causing immunity. However, if you say something like church attendance and immunity related, you don't have to have causal analysis to back that up. Things like another headline we've seen is Facebook users get worse grades in college. That is not actually a causal headline. It's not saying that Facebook causes you to get worse grades. It's saying Facebook use is related to worse grades. So there could be a third hidden variable, confounding variable, lurking variable, whatever you want to call it, that's causing both high levels of Facebook use and worse grades. Typically, if you have data that's only correlation data, so only something that's saying the relationship, you want to use words like get, have, are linked, is tied to, is connected to, or is related to. If you have only analysis that says these two things are correlated, that it's not causal analysis, which is most of the time, you should avoid using the words like cause, increases or decreases, benefits, impacts, enhances, undermines, effects, improves, or boosts. All of these words imply causation. Even if you say later that you don't have evidence that supports causation, these words, studies have shown, are related in the human brain to causation. So it's important when you're telling any data story to any audience, whether it's a very non-technical lay audience or whether it's a very scientific technical audience, the way that you present your data storytelling needs to be ethical. So that means it needs to be transparent, it needs to be accurate, and you need to choose your words really carefully.